Ever wondered what it truly takes to succeed in specific jobs around Signature? Well, you're about to find out. From software engineering to talent acquisition, we're here to spotlight real-life paths to success. Welcome to On the Job With, your window into career pathing and discovering what it takes to excel in roles all around our organization. Your host and Signature Edge producer, Addison, is diving deep into the heart of career exploration and hearing personal experiences from people's journeys to career excellence. You can only know what's possible when you hear what the job really is directly from those getting it done. So, if you're ready to focus on career pathing and discover the steps that led our guests to where they are now, buckle up and tune in to On the Job With.
Hello, listeners, and hello, Signature Performance. This is your host, Addison Stoddard, with another episode of On the Job With, and I am super excited today to be sitting down with one of our data analysts, Tom Gray. Tom, how are you doing today?
Hey, Addison, I'm doing great, and I'd like to thank you for inviting me to come do the podcast. I listened to some of the other ones and enjoyed them, so I've really been looking forward to it.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think a lot of the stories we tell with our associates are very cool. So thank you for taking some time to listen to some of what your other associates are doing on the job. But as a data analyst, I thought you and your team really occupy a very interesting space where it came to, creating dashboards and consolidating all of this data. We try, Signature tracks everything. I think it's part of our secret sauces. We know exactly what's happening everywhere, but you occupy a really interesting space in terms of condensing that information into usable dashboards, reports, that sort of thing that really help everybody from bottom to top here at Signature. But I don't want to describe your job to the listeners. I want you to describe your job to the listeners. So question I ask everybody, first question when they start the conversation, could you explain your job to anybody listening today? Just imagine it's a career fair or bring a member of your family to class type situation.
Glad to. As you point out, the dashboards that we build are used by people throughout the company. So that means that the 7 people on our team have to have a pretty broad understanding of what everybody does. So as an example of what we do, an associate who's taking calls, responding to the clients that call in, all the work they do is being captured in a database. It used to be a piece of software called Five9, and now it's called NICE. So it's captured in a database, and in order to provide feedback on how the associates are doing for their own benefit and for their managers for doing coaching and that kind of thing, our dashboards are built to pull data from those databases and then visualize it in different ways to make it easy to digest. So we come up with metrics like CPH, which could stand for calls per hour, or it could stand for claims per hour, depending on what kind of work an associate does. But there's a formula for how that's calculated. Data is pulled from the database, and then in some places it's presented in a bar chart. In other places it's just a number. So a number of different ways, to do it, which is fun for us because we get to build a variety of things. So for an individual associate, it's presented for them on a dashboard that includes not just that CPH, but feedback on the quality of their work, breakouts of, details of all the work that they did, how available they were during the day. So we've got all of these metrics for an individual associate that they see on their dashboard. And then their manager gets to see roll-ups for all of the associates on their team. And then the managers are kind of graded on how well their team are doing overall. So a step above the managers, the kind of the executive management, get to see how each of the managers are doing and who might need, more or fewer associates, or, might need some coaching on some particular aspect of their work. So it's a lot of fun for us. The big challenge is when I first came to the company, we worked with a piece of software called Tableau to do these visualizations and to pull the data. A couple of years after I got here, I've been here 6 years now. A couple of years after I got here, we rewrote everything using software called Dundas, which is a Canadian company, which worked in a very different way. It was, it's much more flexible. It's quite a piece of software. And now we're redoing everything to use Power BI. Which is a cost savings because the company already pays for Microsoft products, which this is. But again, it's a completely different language, so to speak. And it's more limited in what we can do. So we're having to find, workarounds and be creative. So, and that's part of the fun of it. It's a challenge, but it's part of the fun because we're solving puzzles, overcoming these problems. Yeah, so that's what the team does.
I can imagine that that can be quite a bit of fun to solve puzzles, especially for somebody in your role or maybe your way of working or thinking as well. So that's very cool. As you mentioned in the sort of pre-interview, you actually mentioned that you guys are, with the switch over to Power BI, have to do some conversion work. Could you speak a little bit more to what's gonna be required for that?
Yeah, we've been about the last year, we've been starting to ramp up to be prepared for this transition because it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take, probably more than a year now to get it all done. So 7 people on the team. We've got Kelly, who manages the team, and she's a great font of knowledge about the company. She's been here for a very long time, uh, so she knows how everything works at the company. So Kelly keeps us organized, and then the remaining 6 members, we've got different roles. There's 2 people, Warren and Scott, who manage pulling the data, organizing. In Dundas, it was called data cubes, and in Power BI, it's called, I got it written down here, semantic models. So we have to learn kind of a different language as we go. So in Dundas had 175 cubes. Those are all having to be rebuilt, reorganized into these semantic models by Warren and Scott. Visualizations, we've got about 650 visualizations. So, bar charts, scatter charts, uh, you name it. So 650 of those have to be rebuilt. Power BI calls those visuals. Dundas called them metric sets. And then all of these visuals get stacked into dashboards. There's about 200 of those that we'll have to build. Power BI does dashboards and reports as 2 separate things. Most of what we built in Dundas are really reports because they're detailed, there's lots of filters, they're interactive. Power BI dashboards are much simpler. It's just something that you're meant to look at. You get a couple important numbers, see where you are, and then you move on. So the work that we do is going to get broken out in 2 ways, in dashboards and in these reports. So the people that work on those are myself and Michelle, building visualizations. We got Jordan, who manages the QA, does the double check on us, make sure everything works as it should, that it's all visually right, and functions. And then Jesse is going to be focused on building things that can't be built in Power BI, using some other common tool to build these interactive displays.
Sounds like you will be busy. So it's always good to have something to look forward to in the new year. Speaking with you over the few minutes we used to spend this conversation, you seem like a data person. My next question for you is, have you always been a data person? Is this something that you sort of adapted to in roles you've taken previously, or sort of who you've always been?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, what's my origin story? So I grew up on a small farm in Michigan. So, I knew hoeing beans and picking stones out of the field and, farm stuff, doing the farm boy thing. I'm just the right age to, when I was about 10, that's when personal computers started becoming a thing. So about, late 70s, about 1980. I talked my dad into buying me a Commodore VIC-20, little personal computer, hook up to your television as a monitor. Couldn't afford the data cassette. You used to use cassette tapes to record your programs after you entered them in, or you could buy, pre preloaded programs on these cassette tapes. Didn't have that, so I would save up my money, buy a magazine, and in the magazine was page after page of computer code that you would type into the computer. So type it in. I had 3 kilobytes of memory to work with. And I remember one of them it was a get out of a maze game. And so you picture a computer screen, and there's a little screen is black, but there's a little area, bottom left corner, where you can see yourself, little dot, and you can see I could go up and I can go to the left. You're like in corridor, you're in a maze. And so as you moved, say it's I'll move to the right because I said bottom left. So as I moved to the right, the little visible square around me would move. So I could only see this little piece of the maze as I'm moving around. So you move around and geez, this is really cool. And there's a kind of a countdown happening like a bomb is going to explode. So you got this pressure. So you're using the little cursor keys and you move around great, when you manage to find your way out of the maze and survive. Okay, and then rerun the game, and it's the same game. So once you've solved it, you've solved it. When you turn the computer off, it goes away. You lose the whole thing, and if you want to play it again, you have to type in the whole software. So I got good at typing. I learned how the programming was done. Uh, it was a lot of fun. Kids today probably wouldn't understand the appeal of it, given that you got, 3D immersive virtual reality stuff. But that's where I got started doing the technological, the technical things. Big fan of science fiction, and the stuff I read, of course, had been written in the decades before I read it. So it was written in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and we're living in a science fiction age where the stuff we've got now is beyond a lot of what they were envisioning back then. So that's really cool. And so to finish out the origin story, I ended up doing a military career, did leadership work, ammunition on the battlefield, so led troops, training, getting the missions done for about half of my career, so about 12 years, and then I spent another 12 years doing nuclear uh, nuclear weapons effects modeling, doing technical things. So when it came time to go look for a civilian career, I had some skills that I could use. So
I was gonna say that is so impressive. Even as a young man doing the the hand programming from just like the magazine, that sort of thing, to moving into the military and then doing the, as you said, the nuclear effects modeling. That's crazy. I have to comment on the fact that you said that your Commodore had 3 kilobytes of RAM. And I
yep.
was, to make this a little timely and to say with the price of RAM anymore, I think we're all going to end up with about 3 kilobytes of RAM in our new computers. So, I think we're going to be going back to basics on that one, Tom. So, how do you fit your role in the work you do into Signature's mission of improving our clients' business and making the lives of those who work with better?
From my point of view, signature, it's all about information. Somebody calls in with a question about a claim, it's all about accessing that information, uh, doing it quickly, having it be accurate. And my role is to, uh, it's less about each individual call that comes in, because the associates who take these calls or respond to the email requests, they're using other people's software to answer those questions. So my role is more taking all of the statistics, all of the data that's generated by how the work is done, and uh, being able to feed that back as a kind of a quality control thing. So the CPH is the work being done rapidly enough? Are we getting enough? Are we answering enough calls? Are we keeping the backlog down so that the people calling in don't have to wait forever? Uh, Signature's got a team that goes back and does quality checks on, calls and on written work. So associates get a score, a QA score, based on the kind of work they do. There's a series of questions that are answered for each type of work. So associates can get feedback on the quality of their work. Managers can see which associate may need more coaching on some particular aspect of what they do. So improving the speed at which work gets done and the quality at which it's done, I think is affected by how easy it is to use these dashboards and understand them, get what you need, and move on. So you're not spending all the time looking at the dashboard. A manager can pretty quickly look at it and say, okay, here's the 5 things I need to work on today. This person needs some coaching. There's some issue with CPH, and they may find out that there's distractions happening. There's training could be a reason that, CPH is affected. And so all of those things.
Quite a signal through the noise situation, but it definitely helps to clear the noise, as you said, in some of those situations where it's like there's so much going on data wise, to be able to have a dashboard that can help prioritize what I need to do, can help visualize what people I work with or people I lead are doing. I think that is very, very valuable. So I'm glad that we're able to put those dashboards together.
Yeah, and that's so there I'm talking the day to day, but there's also periodically a question can come up. Management might be going to make a decision on, changing how manpower is assigned or uh, deciding if they want to take on some new kind of work. and they could ask our team to do a study. Yeah, start pulling from the database. So an example would be we can look at people who decide to leave the company and then see if there's some telltale that happens before they leave. So does the quality of work tail off? Does the calls per hour tail off? And is that an indicator that somebody's, maybe unhappy with their work and getting ready to, in the military, we would say pull pitch, which means take down the tents and leave. Yeah.
That's sort of interesting little facet I always love about some of these like data dive downs is, looking at all, as I mentioned earlier, sort of the signal through the noise situation is is there a story being told of the data that you can't necessarily see until you're able to consolidate it? As you said, is there some sort of behavioral or metric aspect that's sort of behavior that is sort of indicative of, future behavior, past behavior, that sort of thing? To bring it into sort of the experienced teams world, we have noticed through our data that people that get involved with a lot of our internal products, whether that's signature reads, signature live, emerging leaders, those sort of things, very low turnover rate. So we sort of have adopted sort of a statement along the lines of the, if you do, you stay. So to relate it to what you're saying is like, I sort of love that. Like, oh, I like specifically asked in a meeting one time, is like, what is the turnover rate for emerging leaders? Or like, how many people started signature reads at the beginning of the year and how many people finished it? I mean, I'm still with the company that started it. It's like, I'm pulling a number out of the air right now, but it's 95%. Interesting statistic. Maybe
Yeah.
we should be having more people participate in signature reads, that sort of thing. But just these signature programs that they're really having to offer. So I think that's sort of a common ground me and you share both in our different worlds is finding these stories of the data as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. What I was describing is called predictive analytics, and we're not there yet, but that is one of our goals is to get to the point where the data is understood enough and we've collected the right kinds of data that we can be predictive about, say, who is likely to leave the company and for what reason, so that managers can step in and needs more incentive, needs more opportunity for involvement. Perhaps an associate would be happier in a different role in the company. Those kinds of questions.
Yeah, and I think that's totally the right mindset to be looking at it from. It's not like a when are they leaving the company, but how can we improve their situation? So,
Sure.
they want to, can do more, make a bigger impact at Signature, and feel more secure in their role as well. Your 24-year career in the Army, which preceded you coming to Signature, obviously a lot of different responsibilities, needs in regards to the job. Has your understanding of success changed during the different stages of your career, or do you sort of have sort of a same guiding light?
I think, let's see, you're asking me kind of a philosophical question. Kid growing up on the farm, my dad was also a machinist. That's how he could afford to raise a family on, 40 acres. So his farming habit was paid for by him working in a foundry and doing machine repair. We also had a big shop on the farm with mills and lathes. It's very, it's painstaking work. It's detailed work. It's a very specialized kind of thing, machining metal. Uh, it's not measure twice and cut once. You got to measure many, many times and to get it all right. So I bring that up because when I was working with my dad, uh, I understood the importance of, getting things right. And his personality was such that I loved working with him. I wasn't I wasn't a farmhand. I wasn't the kid who sweeps up the shop. He took an active interest in teaching me, what he was doing and took an interest in, the things that I was learning, and that was cool. So I think that that's always been how I approach things. So the military career, I went in as an officer. I did the ROTC route. So suddenly, I'm a platoon leader and I'm responsible for, at one point, it was 65 uh, ammunition handlers in a platoon in Germany. And I was their leader, and there's kind of this separation between officers and NCOs and enlisted, just as a tradition. But I was always much more interested in the hands-on, learning what they're doing, being involved. Uh, so that half the career, that 12 years that I described, the first half was all troop leading. It was keeping everybody happy and fed, and are they getting their mail, all that detailed stuff. Is everybody got the training that they need? Would we survive if we got sent into combat? And those kinds of questions. And then after I got done with company command, it was more after company command, that's kind of your final troop leading job, unless you go on to command at battalion level. So you start doing staff jobs where it's data, and decision making and logistics and that work. And I got the opportunity to go get a nuclear science degree. My undergraduate degree was physics, so I was kind of a shoe-in to go learn nuclear science work. And so learned to do modeling of nuclear weapons effects. So how a weapon works, how a nuclear reactor works, when a weapon goes off, how do the fallout products form, the dust that comes down. There's a particular way that gets formed, and understanding how to use meteorological reports to figure out where the fallout's going to be deposited. And then using physics models, you can calculate how long is it going to be dangerous, for people who are in MOP gear, in protective gear. So focus on understanding the tools. A lot of it's all computer based now. So all this technical stuff is what I did for the second 12 years of my career. And and that got me in a position to come here to Signature.
In your career, even your childhood, I mean, when it comes to, doing the machine work with your dad in the lanes and stuff like that, to having to be very, very knowledgeable about that, to then the knowledge you had to have both as an Army officer and then as like a nuclear effects scientist as well. Something that really stuck out to me is you used the phrase in your pre-interview, you'd be very well informed about a narrow field. And it seems like you've had to do that quite a few times in your life. And here we are, healthcare. So thank you for doing distinguished performance and sort of bringing that mindset and that work ethic to healthcare and the work we're trying to do there with healthcare administration. You talked a little bit about this previously in the conversation, but obviously a lot of technology going on, machine learning, AI, however you want to put all that together with how we're assembling this data and sort of the abilities we have to do that. How do you see you and your profession evolving? What steps are you taking to stay ahead of these changes? This machine learning, as I mentioned, new automation tools can just greatly increase productivity. So how are we taking advantage of that?
The impact all the changes technology are having today, at first is changing between the three different tools that we use to build dashboards. Okay. But in this go around versus the previous one that we did from Tableau to Dundas, I'm getting to use AI when I do a Google search on, hey, I'm trying to solve this particular problem with Power BI. I want it to show me this. I want to do this thing. The Google AI tool does a pretty good job, reaching out, finding several different places where that question was asked and answered, and then summarizing it for me in a way that I can directly use. I appreciate that. The AI there is a useful tool to me. It's helping me. It's going to help us do this transition to recreate these dashboards in a way that'll be less expensive to the company and hopefully more maintainable. As we start doing predictive analysis, that's very much an AI thing. AI tools are used for that. So to do our predictive analytics in the future, we will use, probably an AI tool. Don't know if it'll be owned in-house or if, we'll use another one somewhere, but we'll teach an AI about turnover of associates and feed them information about work habits and engagement with the company culture and all those kinds of questions. And then maybe we can do predictive analytics about how can we make work more satisfying and more impactful.
Love that, especially using some of this machine learning as pattern recognition. As I said, I think is a huge time saver. Right? Human beings are pattern recognizers. Like, to amp it up with some of these automation features, I think are going to be very, very powerful, especially for what Signature does, whether it's in the actual work we do or making sure that our associates, feel valued in what they do as well. How do you function with team dynamics? How does your team interact? Meeting structures, task assignments. You guys have so much going on. How do you keep track and organize with the work you guys are doing?
It is a challenge. Kelly, who manages our team, really keeps us on track. We use a sprint system to organize all of our work. So it's a 2-week sprint. In fact, we just began a sprint, so that means this coming Friday we'll be planning for our next sprint, which will start, 2 weeks after that. So the normal flow of things is that we look at all of the work we are currently doing. We look at work in the backlog, and we assemble what we think will be enough work to keep each of us going for 2 weeks. And that there's some sequencing involved. So if I'm going to build a dashboard, the data source has to be available. So the work to create a new data source, if that's needed, has to be scheduled before me building a dashboard. Me building the dashboard has to happen before the QA step that we do internally. Yeah, so this whole sequencing thing happens. So we assemble 2 weeks worth of work. Each morning during the 2 weeks, we check in, we run down. There's a piece of software that helps us do our sprint work called Majira, but each of these elements of work that we're doing, and ask for help if we need it, collaborate to solve, puzzles. We do a check-in with Kelly early in the sprint process, well, early in each week. We do a check-in with her. Uh, on a bi-weekly basis, we do a data culture meeting, which lately has been focused on converting over to Power BI. So we share tips and tricks as we tackle these building visualizations and building the data sources. We also every 2 weeks do a happy hour, which is a lot of fun. It's really a half an hour, although sometimes it goes a little longer. We all stop what we're doing, gather on teams, and in the past we've done virtual escape rooms, we've done trivia challenges, and for several months now we've been doing a game based on Quirtle, but you're solving 4 words at the same time. So you got a limited number of attempts. And Kelly, who enjoys puzzles, she's come up with an algorithm that comes up with the best 3 words to initially type in to reveal which words are in which, or which letters are in which of the Quirtle words. And then we jointly stare at them and come up with ideas and argue it out. And very seldom do we not manage to solve the puzzle by the time we get to the end of it. But I look forward to that. That's a lot of fun. Stuck on something and have to ask for help. We've got a place on Teams which we call Rubber Duck. That came about because a previous manager of our team, she would call us unicorns. Somebody had mentioned to her that your team, we don't really understand what they do. They're kind of magical. They're unicorns. They're unique. So we were called the unicorns. And we had this idea that when we got stuck, if we got somebody, even if they know nothing about what we're doing, the process of explaining why I'm stuck will often reveal the solution to my problem. So we would put out the call, hey, who wants to be a rubber duck that I can talk to about my problem and try to help me solve it that way? That's kind of fun because in the military, they had a thing called Napoleon's Corporal. The concept of if you write an operations order, it's got to be simple enough that you can give it to Napoleon's Corporal and he would be able to execute what you've got to do. That's why we call ourselves unicorns. And then Kelly took to calling us wondrous creatures of light, which I just love. And I haven't figured out where that came from, but that's a reference to a piece of fiction somewhere. But she calls us Wockles, wondrous creatures of light, WOCL.
Kelly actually used to be my manager in
Oh,
a previous life here at Signature. And that is so Kelly, I will tell you that. I just love the word Wockles. So I had to have you mention that. I thought that was Wockles. I love it.
I do hesitate to tell you how much fun we have on the team because this podcast goes out to the whole company, and now I'll have to compete with everybody else that wants to come join the team.
It happens. So, well, I'll edit around that time. Don't worry. They won't know you have that much fun. So, my next question for you is, what impact are you aspiring to make with the people you work directly with?
I enjoy working with everybody on the team, but of course, I also want to be the hero sometimes. So I want to be the go-to person. I think right now I am that person for Power BI. We've spent about a year taking Coursera courses. There's an online, sort of an online university called Coursera. So we took a whole suite of classes about Power BI. I took some Microsoft Power BI training, and I went and got a certification in Power BI. So a piece of paper that says, hey, I know how to use this piece of software. And everybody on the team is working towards that. I happen to be the first one to go in as the guinea pig and take the test. So right now, I really enjoy helping somebody solve a problem, being able to use the benefit of what experience I have in order to make somebody else's work a little lighter. Yeah.
Looking inward, like the people you work directly with, switching that outwardly to the world that Signature is affecting, how do you see your role positively affecting our clients and the people we work with outside of Signature?
Yeah, I came to Signature in part because of my view that their mission produces a public good by improving healthcare, by bringing down that overhead and making more resources available to actually do healthcare. And it happens that I got married shortly after I started working for Signature. The woman I married is a nurse practitioner here from Nebraska. I grew up in Michigan. So she's a nurse practitioner. She was working on her PhD. Her father had been a surgeon. That was his career. So suddenly I married into this, this storehouse of medical knowledge. And Sydney has impressed upon me just how big an impact all the confusion about insurance policies has on trying to provide healthcare. Everybody who walks in to her office, that's one additional hurdle you got to go through. Figure out what's wrong with them, what is the best modality for treatment, and then you got to come over this hurdle of, okay, what can I prescribe that they're going to be able to afford based on the hundreds of different healthcare policies that are out there. So there's all this confusion. So Signature's role in helping reduce the confusion has a huge impact on the quality of life of the patients and their families, of the healthcare providers, of the business, the hospital viewed as a business that has to, manage the money coming in, money going out. So Signature's impact on that is huge in reducing the confusion and making it possible for people to work more efficiently. So if the things that I build and my team builds can help the associates and managers in Signature do their work more efficiently, then we can have that greater impact of preserving resources for the hospitals and the healthcare practitioners to use to provide better healthcare.
My role on the experience team, working a lot with our associates and, being able to tell your story, tell other people's stories, hear other people's stories, and just, recognize the work that our associates are doing. Very powerful. I love that. Also, another thing I love working about Signature, I can't tell you dozens of stories of working with a client or a rural hospital or somebody where the work we were able to do with them, as you mentioned, reduced confusions, lowered overhead, and they were able to reinvest that savings, that money, into MRI machines, increased hours, a specialty clinic, bringing in new specialists for maybe things that they didn't have, especially in rural areas, being able to bring in a doctor to help cover something that maybe residents of that area did not have access to, might be driving 3 hours, 6 hours to a larger hospital that they're in a more rural area. So your response to that really spoke to me, because that's something I find very powerful about being part of Signature's mission and being part of the organization as well. Tom, I just want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. We've talked about so much. Your answers have been so verbose. You know so much about what you do and have such a passion for what you do as well. I just really want to thank you for being our latest guest on the Job With.
Yep. Thanks, Addison, and thanks again for inviting me to do this, making it so much fun. And anybody else out there, don't hesitate if Addison gives you this opportunity.
I like that. Well, thank you. I appreciate the referral. And listeners, with that, we will see you on the next On the Job With.
Ever wondered what it truly takes to succeed in specific jobs around Signature? Well, you're about to find out. From software engineering to talent acquisition, we're here to spotlight real-life paths to success. Welcome to On the Job With, your window into career pathing and discovering what it takes to excel in roles all around our organization. Your host and Signature Edge producer, Addison, is diving deep into the heart of career exploration and hearing personal experiences from people's journeys to career excellence. You can only know what's possible when you hear what the job really is, directly from those getting it done. So, if you're ready to focus on career pathing and discover the steps that led our guests to where they are now, buckle up and tune in to On the Job With.